The first night it happened, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. My heart kicked into overdrive before my eyes even opened. I pushed up from the mattress, drenched in sweat, though the October air seeping through the cracked window was cold. The clock glowed 2:13 a.m., a time I'd never see again without remembering the noise that pulled me out of sleep. We had just moved into the house on the outskirts of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a two-story place built in the early 1900s, wedged between the Susquehanna River and a stretch of old railroad tracks. It was late 2010, when the economy was still bruised and houses stood empty in our neighborhood like boarded-up tombs. This house had been a deal, something my father jumped on after months of searching. He liked its heavy wood banisters, the high ceilings, and the basement with fieldstone walls. I remember thinking it smelled faintly of damp earth no matter how many candles my mother lit. That first sound of glass, though, nothing had fallen. We checked the kitchen, the living room, even the basement. Every window was intact, every dish in place. My father brushed it off as the heating pipes snapping under pressure. I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind. The pitch wasn't a crack or pop, but a violent shatter, sharp enough to make my skin crawl. 2 nights later, it happened again. Not glass this time, but a hard thud, like someone dropping a heavy box directly above my room. I was on the 2nd floor. Above me was only the attic. My pulse raced as I stared at the ceiling, expecting dust to sift down. Nothing. I counted out loud in my head, forcing myself to calm down. When I climbed the narrow attic stairs the next day, the air was so stale it burned my throat. Cobwebs clung to the rafters. Boxes from the previous owner sat stacked and taped shut. Not one was shifted or broken. The tension built fast. Within that first week, none of us were sleeping. My younger brother stopped using his own room, instead dragging his blankets to the couch in the living room. He wouldn't explain why. My mother moved through the house with clenched fists, as if bracing for an impact we couldn't see. My father grew short-tempered, snapping at the smallest things. Then the cold came. It didn't matter if the furnace was running. A current of icy air seemed to drift from the basement upward. I'd wake at night and see my breath fogging. Every morning, condensation clung to the insides of the upstairs windows, even when the air outside was dry. The basement was always the worst. The stone walls looked wet, though no water leaked in. The single hanging bulb gave off a weak yellow glow that didn't reach the corners. Whenever I walked down there, I felt as though something shifted in the periphery of my vision, darting just out of sight. At times I'd hear faint scraping, like nails dragged against stone. One evening, just after dusk, my brother dropped a laundry basket halfway down the basement stairs and sprinted up, his face pale, refusing to go back. When I went down to collect it, the air felt denser, charged, almost metallic. I bent to grab the basket, and that's when I heard it breathing. Slow, ragged, in the shadows just beyond the light bulb's reach. I froze. My skin went hot, then cold, every hair standing upright. The breathing stopped the second I moved. I backed up the steps without turning around. By then, the activity escalated daily. Light fixtures swayed, though no windows were open. Doors rattled in their frames. The sound of footsteps, measured, heavy, paced the hallway at night when everyone was in bed. Once, while brushing my teeth, I glanced in the mirror and saw someone move past the bathroom doorway behind me. I stepped out instantly. The hallway was empty. We started locking our bedroom doors at night. It made no difference. I'd wake to the sound of the knob turning, slow and deliberate, as though someone were testing it. The most frightening moments were always quick, violent flashes. One night, my mother was jolted awake by the sensation of the mattress shaking beneath her. She shot upright, pulling the blankets to her chest. By the time she stood, the bed was still. She didn't sleep at all that night. I wasn't spared either. While sitting at my desk late one evening, trying to finish a college essay, I felt a sudden pressure on the back of my chair, like someone leaning heavily against it. The wood creaked. I spun around so fast my chair toppled. The room was empty. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. The house seemed to feed off our fear. The more unsettled we became, the bolder the activity grew. One particular night remains etched into me. It was early December, the sky heavy with snow clouds, the streets outside silent. I was lying in bed, trying to read, when every window in the house rattled violently at once. The sound was deafening, as if a truck had slammed into the foundation. My book flew from my hands as I bolted upright. The rattling stopped just as suddenly, plunging everything into silence thick enough that my ears rang. Seconds later, the air in my room dropped to freezing. My breath billowed in front of me, and I heard a slow, dragging sound against the floorboards directly outside my door. It crept past my room, each scrape lasting too long, deliberate, heavy. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I pressed myself against the headboard, holding my breath. The scraping stopped. Then came a thud against my door. Just one, but it reverberated through the frame like a hammer strike. My knees buckled when I tried to stand. I couldn't open the door until morning, when sunlight cut through the frost on the glass. The hallway outside looked normal. Too normal. The next weeks blurred into a cycle of dread and exhaustion. My father, desperate for a rational explanation, hired a contractor to check the foundation, the pipes, the furnace. Nothing was wrong. No leaks, no loose boards, no drafts that could account for the cold currents. Every practical explanation fell apart. Then came the night that nearly drove us out. It was just after midnight when the smoke detectors screamed to life, shrill enough to jolt us from sleep. We stumbled through the hallways, adrenaline flooding, expecting to see flames. But the air was clear, no smoke, no fire. The alarms wouldn't stop, even after we yanked the batteries. As we tried to silence them, something else began. From the basement rose a pounding, rhythmic and relentless, like fists beating against the stone walls. My stomach lurched at the sound. We froze on the landing, listening as the pounding climbed the steps, one by one, until it reached the door at the top. The knob twisted violently, rattling in its lock. My brother clutched the banister, his face drained of colour. Then, silence. The knob stilled. The pounding ceased. The alarms cut out all at once. The house fell so quiet it was unbearable. None of us slept that night. In the following days, my mother insisted on leaving. My father resisted, but his own nerves were unravelling. He jumped at every sound. He barely went near the basement. We lasted another month, each night worse than the one before, until one final event tipped the balance. I was in the kitchen alone, pouring a glass of water. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked steadily. Then, without warning, every cabinet door slammed open at once. The sound ricocheted off the walls, so loud I dropped the glass, water splashing across the floor. My chest seized as I watched one of the doors swing back and forth like a pendulum, slow and mocking, though no air moved. That was it. Within the week, we were gone. The house still stands there in Harrisburg, weathered and peeling. Sometimes, when I drive past, I wonder if the new owners hear the same footsteps, feel the same ice-cold air slipping through the walls, wake to the same sounds that made us feel hunted in our own home. I never want to know the answer.